Today on Hot Thai Kitchen we are making ราดหน้า สวัสดีค่ะ Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. Today we're making something called ราดหน้า which is a noodle dish with this delicious light gravy sauce on top of it that's actually been requested quite a few times and it's a very popular lunch item in Thailand. So let's first take a look at what ราดหน้า means. ราด means to pour sauce over something and หน้า means the top or the face of something. So it's referring to the fact that this dish, the sauce gets poured onto the noodles right before you serve it. So let's first take a look at our pork because pork is actually the most important ingredient in this dish. Believe it or not, the quality ofราดหน้า in Thailand is judged by how flavorful and tender the pork is. So the marinade is very important. Here's our ingredient list. 200 grams of pork, thinly sliced, about 1/8 of an inch thick. I'm using pork butt today, but you can use any kind of pork. 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, 2 teaspoons of oyster sauce, 1/4 of a teaspoon of white pepper, a dash of sesame oil, 1 large egg white, 2 tablespoons tapioca starch. Okay, so now I know the tapioca and the egg whites are a little bit odd as a marinade ingredient, but they're actually the most important part. So together, the tapioca and the egg whites will coat the pork, and when we go to cook the pork, it'll create kind of a seal. It'll congeal and create a seal around the pork that'll retain moisture and give a really nice velvety mouth feel. All right, so that's what they're there for. So pretty simple. I chose pork butt today because it's got nice fat running around through it, but you can use any cut of pork that you'd like. And all you have to do is just put all the ingredients into a bowl and mix it all up. And you want to let this marinate for at least 30 minutes to really give the pork some time to absorb everything. I like to do this actually the night before I'm going to make this dish, so then I don't have to worry about it the next day when I'm ready to cook it. It's all ready to go, and the pork is really good when you do it overnight. So let's take a look at our noodles. So today I'm using these fresh white rice noodles here, the same ones that I used in pad khee mao and pad see ew. Now I know a lot of you have written me to say that you can't find these anywhere, and if that's the case, not to worry, because next week I will post a video on how you can actually make these noodles yourself, and they're not very hard. So if you're interested, you can stay tuned for that. Now you can use 2 other types of noodles that are commonly used in Thailand. One, you can use crispy fried egg noodles, so just deep fry some egg noodles and then pour the sauce over that. Or you can use the very thin threads of rice noodles. I actually talked about this. It's called sen mi. I talked about this in my noodle roundup video, so you can take a look at that if you'd like. But for now, this is what we're going to use. I've got a pound of these noodles here, which is going to serve about 2, perhaps 3 light eaters. And we're going to pan fry it quickly with black soy sauce, which is just for color, really. So we'll do that when we get to the stove. Okay, and then last thing we have to look at is just our sauce ingredients. So let's take a look at them. 2 tablespoons of chopped garlic, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1/2 a tablespoon of Golden Mountain sauce, 2.5 teaspoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of tapioca starch or cornstarch, 1/4 of a teaspoon of white pepper, 2 cups of pork stock or chicken stock with no salt added, 2 cups of Chinese broccoli. Slice the stems thinly on a bias and roughly chop the leaves. And finally, 2 tablespoons of tau jiao. Now I know you're wondering, what was that last thing? What was 2 tablespoons of what? 2 tablespoons of tau jiao, which is a fermented soybean paste. Okay, it comes in a bottle like this. Looks like that. And it's basically soybeans that have been fermented with salt. And it's salty. It's got also a slightly acidic flavor to it. It actually is a very important ingredient inราดหน้า. But if you can't find this, not to worry, there's actually a very good substitute, which is what we call tau si or Chinese black beans. Okay, when you go to Chinese restaurant, they say black bean sauce. That's the stuff that they use, and it's actually quite available in any Chinese grocery store. Same amount. Wash it first. Give it a good rinse, and then chop it up together with your garlic. Okay. This actually, we use these black beans when we make rad hna with fish. So it's definitely an absolutely fine substitute for that. So now that we've got all of our ingredients, let's go to the stove and cook it. Okay, so first what you want to do is quickly pan fry the noodles with our black soy sauce. So I've got a pan here with a little bit of oil, and I'm going to heat it till it's actually very hot. If your pan can handle a very, very hot, high heat, do that. And then as your oil starts to smoke, that's when you want to go in with your noodles. Let's do that. Okay, and then as soon as that goes in, see, my stove is not very strong, so you can probably do better. You're gonna go in with the black soy sauce, just a little bit, not much. And the idea is you're staining the noodles, right? So you're gonna cook it until the noodle dries up. For a really, really high heat, high BTU burner, if you have them, ideally you want to start toasting the noodles a little bit, get a little bit of browning going, and that adds color. So in Thailand, on the street, when they have one of those blowtorch kind of wok burner, that's what you want. You want to get the noodles a little bit toasted. But for a regular stove, if that's not happening for you, it's not a big deal. Just get it sort of dried up. And now, some of my noodles are actually getting toasted. Yay! When to stop. So you want to stop when it's dry, and you can tell it's dry because the noodles are going to start to clump up together. So that's as soon as it starts to stick together into a big mass, then you're done. Because the noodles are already cooked, you're really trying to heat it up, get a little bit of toasting going, and stain it with some nice soy sauce color. Let's see. There we go. And then it's done. Take that off, set that aside for now. Okay. And now in the same pan, we're going to cook our sauce. And I turned off the stove. There we go. So with our sauce, you want to go in with a little bit more oil. And then since our pan is already hot, hopefully, you can go in directly with the garlic and cook until that starts to get brown. At least a little bit start to get brown. You don't have to wait till all of it starts to get brown. Okay, when that happens, you go in with your tao jiao. Now, if you're using black beans, you want to start sauteing the black beans with the garlic, okay? Okay, so now that's starting to smell good. Deglaze with the stock. Once you deglaze with the stock, you want to add in all of your sauces. So in goes the soy sauce, the Golden Mountain sauce, the white pepper, and our sugar. Okay, and now we're gonna let that come to a boil before we add in our pork. And that's important actually to let it come to a boil, because otherwise when you add the pork and it doesn't cook the pork right away, all that egg white and tapioca starch will wash off, and then you lose all that that coating you were trying to get. So now in the meantime, while we're waiting for that to come to a full boil, I'm gonna mix my tapioca starch in with some water. And that's going to be our thickener, our tapioca starch, which is why you can also use cornstarch. Now you may or may not need all of this, but I just do 2 tablespoons, and then I don't always end up using all of it. You just kind of see how thick it is. And another thing, I like to mix my tapioca starch soon before I cook it, because it tends to settle and then it becomes compact at the bottom and it's kind of hard to stir. Okay, our sauce is boiling now. I'm gonna go in with our pork. And then spread it out quickly, and then let that come back to a boil before we add our vegetables. Okay, a word about stock. I'm using homemade pork stock because we're doing pork rad hna. You can also do chicken stock, but I'd rather you use homemade stock than pre-made or store-bought stock because those ones usually have what do you call it? Salt, a lot of salt added. Even the low sodium ones has a lot of salt, and they also have a lot of additives, and the flavor won't be as pure. I just much prefer homemade stock. But if you absolutely have to use store-bought stock, choose no salt added ones. And if you really can't find it and you only have ones with salt added, you'll have to adjust the measurements for all the soy sauce and all that because it'll be too salty if you use everything. Okay, that's coming back to a nice boil. We're gonna go in with our vegetables. Let that wilt. And then this is when you want to go in with the tapioca slurry. You want to stir it before pouring always because, as I said, they settle at the bottom. And I'd go in with half and stir as you pour. Don't pour without stirring because it'll kind of cook and congeal into a big clump. And then just check to see the consistency. Do you like how thick it is right now? Some of the tapioca from the pork marinade will actually thicken the sauce already. So you won't need, I think that's good. I used just about half. And then you just wait for the pork to cook and taste the sauce, adjust the seasoning, and then you're done. So there, now all we have to do is assemble it. So this amount is about half of what we did, so I think it's a good amount for one person. So 8 ounces of noodles per person. And then you're probably gonna have leftover sauce, because I did that on purpose, just in case. You know, it's always better to have more sauce than not enough, and you just pour it over. And by the way, pork butt is not the butt of the pig. Pork butt actually means pork shoulder. So sometimes when you buy the meat at the store, it'll be labeled pork shoulder. And I think butt actually comes from the word buttress, which apparently means shoulder. So there, condiments for this dish. Always some Pricknam som or spur chilies pickled in white vinegar because this dish is mainly salty and it's quite rich, so it needs a little bit of acid to balance out everything. So just sprinkle, 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 not too much. And then a couple of pieces as nice garnish. And then if you want some extra spice, you can always add some chili flakes on top, which I actually find that for a dish that's rich, the extra spice helps balance everything out. And that's it. This is your raad hna. For the full written recipe, please visit hotthaikitchen.com. And if you enjoy the show, please subscribe. Oh, and don't forget the noodles. Next week is coming up, the tutorial on how you can make these rice noodles yourself. And I will see you next time for your next delicious Thai meal.